Hi everyone. Thank you so much for clicking on this video. Today, we're going to embark on a terrifying short stories under 10 minutes. A journey through different cultures, exploring some of the scariest horror stories from around the world. But before we begin, I want to know, what is the scariest horror story you've ever heard? Share it in the comments, and let's discover together what lies ahead.
1. The Shadows of Venice. Venice was a city of romance and mystery, its canals and narrow streets enchanting. I was there for the Carnival, eager to experience its magic. One night, I wandered through the labyrinthine streets, losing myself in the revelry. As I turned a corner, I found myself in a deserted square. The silence was oppressive, and shadows seemed to move of their own accord. I felt a presence behind me, but when I turned, no one was there. I quickened my pace, but the shadows followed. Desperate, I ducked into an old church, hoping for sanctuary. Inside, the air was thick and heavy. I felt a hand on my shoulder, and I turned to see a figure shrouded in darkness. It whispered of the city's past sins and the souls trapped in its shadows. I fled, but the shadows clung to me. When I emerged into the daylight, I found myself alone, my friends nowhere to be found. I later discovered that Venice's shadows are said to consume those who wander too far from the light, lost forever in the city's dark history. 2. The Echoes of the Catacombs in Paris. Exploring the Paris catacombs was a thrilling yet daunting experience. The endless corridors of bones and skulls created a morbid labyrinth. I ventured deeper than most tourists dared, drawn by the allure of the unknown. The air grew colder, and the light from my flashlight seemed to dim. I heard whispers echoing through the tunnels, growing louder with each step. Panic set in as I realized I had lost my way. The whispers turned to screams, and I felt a presence behind me. I turned around, but there was nothing there. Desperate, I ran, but the passages twisted and turned, leading me in circles. Exhausted, I collapsed against a wall. Suddenly, I felt a hand on my shoulder. I turned to see a skeletal figure with hollow eyes staring at me. It whispered, "Welcome to eternity." I blacked out, and when I woke up, I was back at the entrance of the catacombs, but my reflection in a nearby puddle showed my face among the bones. 3. The Cursed Painting of Florence. Visiting an art gallery in Florence, I was captivated by a particular painting. It depicted a hauntingly beautiful woman with sad eyes. The curator warned me that the painting was cursed, but I dismissed it as superstition. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about the painting. I returned to the gallery and found myself drawn to it once more. As I stared into the woman's eyes, they seemed to follow me. The gallery lights flickered, and I felt a chill. I turned to leave, but the doors were locked. Panic set in as the woman's eyes began to glow. The room grew darker, and I heard a soft whisper. "Help me," it said. I felt a cold hand on my shoulder and turned to see the woman from the painting standing behind me. She reached out and everything went black. When I woke up, I was in the painting, looking out at the gallery, my reflection trapped in the canvas. 4. The Vengeful Spirit of Seoul. During my trip to Seoul, I stayed in an old guest house with a dark history. The locals spoke of a vengeful spirit that haunted the place, but I didn't believe in such tales. That night, I heard strange noises and felt a cold breeze in my room. I dismissed it as my imagination and went to sleep. I woke up to the sound of whispering in a language I couldn't understand. The room was freezing, and I saw a shadowy figure in the corner. Terrified, I tried to leave, but the door wouldn't budge. The figure moved closer, and I felt a sharp pain in my chest. I looked down to see a ghostly hand reaching into my body. The whispers grew louder, and I realized the spirit was trying to possess me. I fought with all my might and managed to break free. I fled the guest house, and as I looked back, I saw the spirit standing at the window, watching me with hollow eyes. I later learned that the guest house was built on the site of a massacre, and the spirits of the victims sought vengeance on anyone who stayed there. 5. The haunted mines of Johannesburg. Exploring the abandoned mines in Johannesburg, South Africa, was supposed to be an adventure. The dark tunnels and eerie silence were unsettling, but I pressed on. As I ventured deeper, I heard faint whispers and the sound of footsteps behind me. I turned around, but no one was there. The air grew colder, and I saw shadows moving in the darkness. Panic set in, and I tried to retrace my steps, but the tunnels seemed to shift and change. I stumbled upon an old, rusted mine cart and decided to use it to find my way out. As I rode the cart through the tunnels, I felt a presence behind me. I turned to see a ghostly figure of a miner, his face twisted in pain. He whispered of a cave-in that trapped and killed the miners, their spirits forever bound to the mine. The cart suddenly stopped, and I found myself at a dead end. The whispers grew louder, and the walls began to close in. I screamed, but no one could hear me. When I finally escaped, I discovered that the entrance to the mine had been sealed for decades, and no one had been able to enter or leave. 6. The Possessed Doll of Mexico City. During my visit to Mexico City, I stumbled upon a quaint antique shop filled with curiosities. Among the items was an old porcelain doll with lifelike eyes. The shopkeeper warned me that the doll was possessed, but I dismissed it as a marketing tactic. That night, I placed the doll on a shelf in my hotel room. I woke up to the sound of giggling and saw the doll had moved. Its eyes seemed to follow me as I walked around the room. I tried to ignore it, but the giggling grew louder. I decided to get rid of the doll and threw it into the trash. As I turned to leave, the doll appeared back on the shelf, its eyes glowing. Terrified, I grabbed the doll and ran to the nearest church. The priest performed an exorcism, and the doll screamed in a child's voice. When the ritual was over, the doll's eyes were empty, and it was just a lifeless toy. As I left the church, I felt a chill and heard a faint whisper. "You can't get rid of me." I looked down and saw a new doll in my hand, identical to the first. 7. The Phantom Lighthouse of Nova Scotia. While vacationing in Nova Scotia, Canada, I decided to visit a remote lighthouse known for its ghost stories. The locals spoke of a lighthouse keeper who vanished mysteriously, and his spirit was said to haunt the place. As I climbed the spiral staircase, I felt a sense of unease. The wind howled outside, and the light flickered. At the top, I found the keeper's journal, filled with entries about strange occurrences and a growing fear of the dark. Suddenly, the light went out, and I was plunged into darkness. I heard footsteps and felt a cold breath on my neck. Panicking, I fumbled for my flashlight and saw the ghostly figure of the keeper. His eyes were filled with terror as he whispered, "The darkness is coming." The walls seemed to close in, and I felt an overwhelming sense of dread. I managed to escape the lighthouse, but as I looked back, I saw the light flickering on and off, and the figure of the keeper staring out to sea. I later learned that the lighthouse had been abandoned for years, and no one had been able to keep the light burning. 8. The Cursed Mansion of Edinburgh. In Edinburgh, Scotland, I rented an old mansion rumored to be cursed. The previous owners had all met tragic ends, and the locals avoided the place. Undeterred, I moved in, fascinated by the mansion's history. The first night, I heard strange noises and felt a cold breeze. As I explored the mansion, I found a hidden room filled with old photographs and letters. The letters spoke of a curse placed on the mansion by a witch who had been wronged. Suddenly, I felt a presence behind me and saw a shadowy figure in the corner. The air grew colder, and the figure whispered, "You are not welcome here." I tried to leave, but the doors were locked. The figure moved closer, and I felt a sharp pain in my chest. I realized that the curse was real, and I was the next victim. In a desperate attempt to escape, I smashed a window and fled. As I looked back, I saw the mansion engulfed in darkness, and the figure watching me with hollow eyes. I later learned that the mansion had been cursed for centuries, and no one had ever survived a night within its walls.
Thank you for watching, especially to the subscribers for supporting our stories. What story do you like the most? Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more thrilling tales. See you in the next video.